Hey, what's up everybody? This is Cam with Danomics. So in this video, I want to show you how Claude can save you some real headaches around tops and structure gridding. So one of the most common problems that I see is that customers, they bring in tops, they've dumped these out of Petra. A lot of times they're coming from a bunch of different sources, and um, and there are going to be some problems. Um, So what I did is I asked Claude. I said, "Hey, can you look into my Danomics account and find this set of tops and do an analysis on it to review it for potential problems?" And Claude came uh, down through here and it found our tops and it it gives us a little summary. It says, "Hey, 220 wells, 14 formations, etc." And here's where it found something important. It said, hey, my middle sprayberry appears as three separate labels: mid space SPBR, mid underscore SPBR, and middle space sprayberry. Found something similar for the Wolfcamp. We had Wolfcamp B in all caps, WFCP space B, and a misspelled version of Wolfcamp B. And then it also said, hey, sometimes you call the sprayberry, other times you call it SPBR. And the reason this is important is because, to the computer, mid underscore sprayberry and mid sprayberry are, erroneous. Also, it said, hey, on some of these wells, you have depth outliers. There's one well and only one well where the entire column is really shallow. So, that seems odd. It also mentions some things about inconsistent tops in here. So what Claude has done is it's gone through and it's analyzed our tops file, and it has found some of these common inconsistencies that create a real headache. And this is stuff that I wouldn't have seen on my own, right? So here's my tops database, and I would have came down through here and I would have looked at a few of these and I said, yeah, that looks pretty good. I wouldn't have gone through all 14 pages of tops, like looking for inconsistencies, right? Um, but Claude was able to find these for me, and I said, all right, hey, can you give me a fix to the naming issues and give me the API for the well that has a shallow column, right? And Claude goes off and it does its thing and says, hey, the well with the shallow column is this well. Um, that's sitting 3,000 feet high relative to its neighbor. So I can go in and I can personally check this well now manually and figure out what's going on. Um, and then it realizes that, for the misnamed tops, that it can go in and rename those. And so it puts together a plan here on how it's going to use Danomics internal tools to achieve that. So it's going to use our points input tool to read the tops. It's going to use points value replace to do some corrections, and then tops output to write us a new cleaned database here. And now and then it asked me, do I want it to run it? And I said, yeah, give it a run. And it came back and told me that everything was successful. And so I was pretty impressed by that, but I thought, I want to make this a little more challenging. So I went in and I loaded another tops file that was more broken than that one. Some that also had some duplicate tops, and so I said, hey, can you do a similar analysis for this test 2? And it found it, and it said, hey, first of all, it immediately recognized this is a sibling of this. Um, and it says, hey, I found the same naming issues, same well, that has, the very shallow tops. And it says, hey, there's a new problem in this one. There are duplicate Wolfcamp B tops. And it gives me a list of the APIs where there are duplicates. And then it asks me, hey, are all these in the, do you want me to fix these as well? And I said, I told it to hold off. And I said, can you check the stratigraphic order? And it's able to do this as well. It said, hey, yep, everything is in the right stratigraphic order, and there's no crossovers or tops inversions that would cause us problems there. But it is highlighting that, there's this inconsistency with respect to that. Um, so this was another test of the capabilities of Claude, and this is something where, um, you know, once again, I could do all this manually, but I don't want to, right? I don't want to have to make my cross section, scroll across it, realize, oh, hey, there's a slightly, you know, poorly named top in here. There's a duplicate top in here. Let me manually delete that out. When I can have the AI do that for me. So this is just another small example of how we can let this Danomics and Claude integration uh, let us be more productive. So that way I can focus on the real value add stuff instead of wrangling data and renaming things in spreadsheets. All right, well, if you'd like to see more, just give us a shout at sales@danomics.com. Happy interpreting, everybody.